Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Poor Studio Guy. Today we're going to be looking at a homemade pop filter and a homemade shock mount. Let's get into it. All right. Before we get into the pop filter and the shock mount, I just wanted to quickly say, with the channel being called Poor Studio Guy, I know in the grand scheme of the world, I'm very well to do. Like, I have water and heat and food and a vehicle. So, I'm not poor, actually. But when you're watching a YouTube video and the guy is maybe talking about a microphone that he's showing, and he says something like, yeah, and it's not too expensive. You can find one of these mics for $400 or so. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe for you, that's all good. But for guys like me and maybe you, it's kind of like, it's a pretty big stretch to get a microphone like that. So the whole point of this channel is to just try to find the cheapest ways, but still pretty good quality ways of recording. So in the case of today, though, it doesn't quite make sense because I made this shock mount in 3 pop filters, and it was cheaper than if I had bought them on Amazon, but not by much. And that's mostly because you can find a shock mount and pop filters for fairly cheap online. Like you can find a shock mount for maybe $20 or so, and I'm sure it would work probably. And you can find pop filters online for, $15, and I'm sure they work too. But in this case, I didn't have time to wait for them to be ordered, so I figured I'd just make them. So the reason I wanted to showcase both of these at the same time today is because I used some of the same materials in both builds, and you'll see that as we go through them. So first, we're going to take a look at the pop filter. Now, the main thing behind this is I went to the hardware store and I got a 5-inch ABS coupler. And the reason I went with the coupler and not just the 5-inch pipe is that because the 5-inch coupler was actually a little bit bigger because it has to fit around the 5-inch pipe. And I just wanted to get as much surface area as possible. So I have a table saw and I just kind of cut some strips off the coupler, about a 1/4 inch thick almost. If you don't have a table saw, maybe if you're good with a handsaw or something, you can try to make that work, but be careful. So I had these circles, and I stretched some pantyhose over top, and I like the fact that there's a layer of pantyhose and then a space and then another layer of pantyhose. I don't know if it actually does anything, but I kind of like the idea of the air hitting the one side, having short space, and then hitting the other side as well. And I know that's how some pop filters out there are made, and it kind of makes sense to me. So I stretched the pantyhose over, and I put some underground wire. I laid it across here, and I fastened it with just some banding and 2 number 8 screws. Now, you want to be careful when you're doing this because as you pre-drill the holes for the screws and as you drill the screws in, it's very easy to start winding up the pantyhose fabric. So just be careful that you're not doing that. But, with some attention, it should work. So once I had that in place, I just wrapped the wire back around and then fastened it in place with a little zip tie there. And yeah, this is it. I fastened it to the mic stand with a little hose clamp, and it seems to work pretty well. But let's take a look. I'm going to show you 2 things to kind of give you an idea of how it works and how well or maybe not well it works. We'll see. But got some toilet paper today. Yes. So we can see it working, but let's take a look and see, and hear it working. But this is the same build as that other one. Okay, this is not going to sound good, sorry. Yeah, so kind of works. And when you're singing or doing voiceover, you're generally kind of toning down your P's and your B's on purpose anyway. So this is just kind of the little icing on the cake that helps you get that much closer to not having P's and B's that are just pounding you right in the gut. So kind of cool. All right, next we have the homemade shock mount. It's kind of ugly, but I actually kind of like it because I made it, and that's all part of it. This with the leftover ABS coupler that I had about 2 inches worth left, and of course, as you can see, I've kind of notched it out with a coping saw after the fact, just to get rid of a little bit of weight and stuff after the fact. But while it was still one complete ring, I took a ruler and I measured across in even sections, so I had 6 points around the circumference. Now I pre-drilled holes in each of those points that would allow this number 8 screw to turn in nice and easy without kind of blowing out the plastic. And I did that on both sides, as you can see. Now this piece in the middle here, it's a plumbing fitting, but you don't necessarily have to have a piece like this. The reason I chose this piece was because it fit the microphone that I wanted to put in here. And it was also kind of handy because it had these hose clamps that came in handy in the end. As you can see, I took some of my wife's hair ties, I fished them through the hose clamps and then I kind of hooked them over the screw there. So once that was all in place, I just needed a way to be able to hook it up to a mic stand. So I stole one of my wife's hairbrushes, cut off the handle, screwed the handle to here, and now it can slip into a mic clip that might be used for like a 58 or any sort of handheld mic, and it actually kind of works. The problem with it is it's a little bit heavy, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot of material there, but it still works. So we're gonna cut away to some examples of it doing its stuff, and we'll be right back. All right, so here's this microphone with the shock mount that it actually came with. So I'm just gonna stomp on the floor and tap the mic stand a couple times to get an idea. All right, here's the microphone in the homemade shock mount. Again, I'm going to stomp on the floor and tap the mic stand. All right, and now just to demonstrate what it's like when the mic is kind of firmly attached to the mic stand, I've just tied up the mic against the mic stand here. I'm going to stomp on the floor and tap on the mic stand. All right, yeah, so that's the shock mount in action. Yeah, that's, it's not that pretty, and in the end, it wasn't that much cheaper than if I had ordered them off Amazon, but it was a bit cheaper. And, at the end of the day, it's my very own thing that I have in my own studio. That's one of the things I like about do-it-yourself microphones or do-it-yourself instruments, maybe even, is you have something that no one else out there has. And if it's a good build and it actually ends up working fairly well, that's kind of an advantage that you have. You have that sound that no one else has. And, that in the end of things is probably not too big of a difference, but it's still kind of cool to think about. For the next video that I'm hoping to upload, I want to do a shootout between Shure 58 and a cheap kind of Behringer version of the 58 type of thing. There's this, you can order a case of 3 little Behringer microphones for something like $30 some off Amazon. So I thought it would be cool to do an A/B test between the two and see if the Behringer version is usable in any sort of situation. But yeah, thanks for watching. Do what you can with what you got.